So we are back with our 66 Mustang. So this interior definitely is still in rough shape. We still need to get everything done in here. This engine hasn't been turned over in close to 40 years. Let's see if we can fix that today. The first thing we knocked out today was we went ahead and drained the oil. We wanted to make sure everything was clean. We pulled the dipstick on it. It looked completely fine. It was pretty clear, but wanted to go ahead and just take the extra couple minutes, go ahead and drain the oil, put a new oil filter on it, make sure everything, all the fluid in the car was completely clean. So here is when we finally get the actual oil pan dropped. Oil that came out, there was no milky color to it. It looked completely good, which was a great sign. There, no water had actually gotten into the engine, which is going to make it tremendously better for us when we try to get everything started over later in the video. But great sign. Car had completely clean oil. Went ahead and let all that oil drain out. After we got done draining the oil is when we started to move on to our oil filter. That unfortunately is where our first issue we've kind of run into. The oil filter was not an easy thing to get off. So somehow the part I thought was going to be the easiest was definitely going to be taking this oil filter off and doing the oil change. But as you can tell by how beat up it is, it definitely was one of the worst things we had to knock out today. For some reason it was just stuck on there, would not come off. We had to get multiple different tools to try to get it off. Eventually we just had to bust it up and eventually broke it free. I have no idea if it's just because it's been sitting there so long or what's going on with it, but we finally got this off and that part's finally knocked out and we have the new filter on there now. So after we get that oil filter off, we went ahead and topped off the engine with some clean brand new oil. We used 10W30. Just from what I read online, that seemed like the best engine to go to for it. We just got a synthetic blend. I'll probably get a little bit nicer oil when we actually get the car fully rebuilt up and running again, but this was a nice thing to go ahead and get in there to get everything started. After we got the oil changed and everything done, we decided we wanted to go ahead and vacuum everything out around where the carburetor was going to go, just make sure there was no dust, debris getting in there. So we just used a shot vac, kind of just went through everything, just vacuuming out the best of our ability just to get all that surface stuff off of there and just make sure there's nothing down in there, just so we had a clean surface to work with. So with the radiator, we really did think it was going to come out super dirty. We thought we were going to end up probably having to flush the engine. That antifreeze has been in there for as long as the engine's been sitting up, so close to 40 years. So we really expect everything to be dirty. We pulled the hose on the bottom. The antifreeze was neon green like it was in there the day it was put in. The antifreeze coming out of the engine was neon green. So we decided not to flush the engine. Instead, we really just ended up focusing on putting some new antifreeze into it. Really only used about half of the actual bottle, so there was still a ton of antifreeze left in the radiator, a ton left in the engine. So it's a good sign that nothing had gotten into it, nothing was dirty. Engine actually had clean antifreeze and coolant running all the way through, which is a really great sign. So after we got done with that, we decided we were going to move on to the spark plugs and the distributor plugs. Now with the distributor, you can see that I have this blue masking tape kind of over all of the plugs. The reason I'm doing that is we're hoping that these plugs were put back in the correct sequence. Don't know for sure. We won't know until we actually start to get the starter started, but we're hoping they were. So I went ahead and pulled them out. As we were pulling them out, my dad was working on the spark plugs, taking those out. I was taping up the distributor plugs and putting numbers on them, just so when we put them back in, we know the correct order we pulled them off in, and we'll be able to put them back in that same correct order. Now this first side over here went great. We had no issues getting any of the spark plugs out. We were able to reach everything, get to everything. It only really happened when we got to our other side over here. First two plugs came out completely great. Now our second plug is right next to that strut tower right there. We tried to get the actual socket down there. We couldn't get the socket wrench in there to actually get it. So what we did was we just put the actual socket over the spark plug, and then we had to use this wrench to kind of try to give us some leverage to actually be able to break that spark plug free. We tried to angle bracket. The angle bracket really didn't have enough power behind it to break it free. So after we loosened it up with that wrench, we were finally able to get that socket wrench on there with the angle bracket and actually be able to move it and get the actual plug out. So it was a lot more work on this side, but eventually all the plugs did come out like they were supposed to. Nothing was broken, and nothing looked too bad. It was just a lot more work on this side than it was on our other side. So finally got these plugs out. They were a lot of work. They're really wedged in there tight. It took a lot of different tools and trying to like finagle a little bit, but we finally got them out. They're honestly not in horrible shape. I mean, everything looks pretty decent. You can see they're been in there for quite some time. They're all rusted up here, so we had to break them free as a little bit more work. Obviously they're a little burnt up and corroded, but for how long they've been in there, honestly they don't look too bad. So now that these are out, we can see if we can get the actual crank moved by hand, If we can't do that, we're going to see if we can figure out something else, but we'll see how it goes. So our goal after we got done pulling all the plugs out was we were hoping that we'd be able to get a socket down there and actually turn the crank ourselves. However, it didn't seem like it was going to work out that way. The way the radiator and the radiator fan are on the front up there, it is almost impossible for us to get anything there to kind of turn it by hand. So our secondary option was we decided we were going to just go ahead and unplug everything, and just see if we could get the starter motor to actually just turn over the engine, just to make sure that it was actually going to turn over the same way we would traditionally do it by hand, but we're just going to use the starter motor as our secondary option for it. Once we hooked up this battery over here, we were having an issue getting any power to the car. We were able to see with a meter that we were getting power from the battery to the solenoid over there, and then the plugs coming off of the solenoid had power to them, but there was nothing else coming to the car. We checked the headlight plugs, there was no power to those. We turned the lights on, weren't getting anything there. We tried to go in the car, look at all the fuses. So this is us just kind of walking around the car, looking through everything, trying to see if we can figure out why there's no power going to it, because there is power going to the solenoid. It looks like the power was coming out of the solenoid. However, we finally did realize that we are going to actually end up just bridging the solenoid, go ahead and skipping that and just finally getting power. After that, we finally heard the noise we were waiting for all day long.
Are you ready?
Yeah, you ready?
Yes.
Alright, so as you guys saw, we finally got the car actually started. Had to end up, the solenoid over here is bad, so we ended up just using a wrench to kind of bridge it, just to see if we can get the motor turned over. Without taking this whole radiator and fan off, we wouldn't be able to actually turn it, so we decided we would see if we could do quick start just without any of the plugs connected or anything plugged in, just to see if we can actually get the motor to turn, which it actually didn't sound too bad. So everything seems to be pretty good. We just got to get the carburetor back on the next one. May have to get something with the distributor. We got to replace the solenoid first. And then after we get the plugs back in, we'll test this distributor, see if the distributor's working. So it's going to be a little bit of a process just to get everything kind of set up. Hopefully the next video we'll actually hear this car run for the first time, but it is good news that it does finally turn over. Alright, so that's basically all we're going to be able to knock out today's video. We did get the car turned over, which is good news. Got all the plugs out, oil changed, radiator seems to be good, nothing's leaking anywhere. So once we get the new solenoid put in there, possibly mess around with the distributor, make sure everything's working there. Mess around a little bit with the fuel to make sure we have fuel going to that new carburetor. Check the oil tank, make sure that's clean. We'll put the carburetor on here and hopefully we'll get it running in the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did enjoy, please like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys later.